The next addition to the WODCCEUU is almost at hand, or should I say, Finn, Aquaman. And what better comic to cover this week than Aquaman Rebirth Volume 2? Now, I know what you're thinking. Smokey, why are you doing Volume 2 instead of Volume 1? I already covered Volume 1 last year. And there should be a little gray box in the right-hand corner appearing right now, maybe, with a link to that video. Or you can just, search it on YouTube if you want. It'll be below 2 other videos about Aquaman the Drowning, but, you don't want to click those. This one's for you, Stephanie Kronk. Released in 2017, written by Dan Abnett, with art by Scott Eaton, Brad Walker, and Philippe Briones. This is Aquaman, Black Manta Rising.
Hey, psst, you wanna see this? Don't tell Warner Brothers about it or else they'll fire me again. I stole this when they fired me. You can have it. It belongs to the people. This version of the movie belongs to the public.
Whiskey. One for Ahab there.
From the sky, I heard a cannon.
The ocean's rage.
And they came. Monsters from the sky. Right through my boat. Monsters.
It's on him.
Aquaman. Aquaman. No one greater than Aquaman. King of Atlantis, king of the sea. Where the danger is, that's where he'll be. Always defending you, yeah, you and me. Aquaman.
This book picks up just after Volume 1, so here's a little recap. This Atlantean terrorist group called the Deluge, which I now know how to properly pronounce, attacked the US, and now the US hates Atlantis even more than it did already. Superman and Aquaman fight a little bit, but Superman lets him go back to Atlantis to fix the situation, and Black Manta joined up with this secret society called Nemo, and became their leader, Santa Claus. In the present, in his private quarters of Atlantis, Arthur Curry sits around thinking. He brings out his Justice League ID card and wonders if he's allowed to go back, and Mera asks if he means the Watchtower, which is a giant satellite that the Justice League uses as a quasi-fascist rule over the entire world, or the League itself. Then Aquaman tells her that there's a singular problem at hand. Who is trying to discredit Atlantis? Mera tells him he should try to resolve some of the smaller problems instead, so she brings in Koa, Elder of Law. Koa comes in and says,
"Hello, Majesty. We elders are overjoyed about you wanting to get married to the beautiful Mera of Zebel."
And your point is, Elder?
Well, I'm not racist, but she is of Zebel. Tradition demands she undergo a series of trials. Rituals, really, to prove she is, worthy of the Atlantean dynasty.
Did you just say, prove she is worthy? Get out.
But, sir, it's tradition.
Out. Then it's Merc's turn to speak with the king. Merc returns from the wreck of the USS Pontchartrain and shows the king an Atlantean helmet. Then he shows that the helmet has been modified to contain a mouthpiece. A scuba mouthpiece, meaning whoever sunk the ship was cosplaying as Atlanteans, but had to breathe air and came from the surface. And Aquaman's like, yeah, no shit, Merc. Cut to Venice. Black Manta and Blackjack overtake a meeting between the board of Nemo. They easily kill the dissenters, and Manta makes his way to the head of the table before he tells them that he's now the Fisher King, and unless there are any more objections, it's time to get to work. Cut to the penitentiary of Atlantis. Aquaman, Mera, and Regent Tola find Coram Wrath, former leader of the Deluge, in a bubble cell. Wrath says that the Deluge didn't sink the surface vessel, and Tola says he's a terrorist and can't be trusted, but Wrath says that he's a lot of things, including a murderer, but he is not a liar. Then he calls Arthur a dirty half-breed, surface-born piece of shit, and Tola punches him. Arthur pulls Tola aside and says, "I can't make you like me, Wrath, but I am king. Someone is engineering a war between Atlantis and the surface, and the deluge is a scapegoat." Then Wrath says he's not gonna help, but he hopes whoever is behind it burns. So the three swim away as Mera tells Arthur she's going to consult Elder Koa. Arthur says that she doesn't have to, and she tells him that she knows. But hey, why not do a few old ceremonies to help her PR? Then they start making out, and Tola's like, I'll just get going then. Then Arthur asks Tola to contact the Elder of Science to create an untraceable telecommunications link with the surface. He needs to make a phone call. So at the Atlantean communications room, Arthur calls FBI agent Reagan Irving and claims an old favor by asking her to search her lists for any interesting names of anyone who might have, like, stolen Atlantean objects. Then he hangs up. Cut to the Atlantic seabed, 80 miles northeast of Atlantis. Blackjack has her officer activate something beneath the surface, releasing the Shaggy Man! This weird giant synthetic being from, like, Silver Age comics. Blackjack orders its target. I'll give you a hint. It's about 80 miles southwest of here. Cut to the Tower of Widowhood. Mera's like, "Hey, Ko, when I told you I consented to the ritual trials..."
Yep, the trial to prove you are worthy of the Atlantean dynasty.
You really don't have to keep hitting that point, Elder. This isn't what I expected.
But the Widowhood is the most sacred order of Atlantis. The widows will induct you with the wisdom and tradition of our people. This is Mother Siti.
Somewhere else, Arthur talks to Seneschal K about the Widowhood when an Atlantean officer warns them about a seaquake south of the city. K demands the warning horns be cried as Arthur looks at the seismic readings and discovers it's not very seismic. In fact, it's walking with rhythm, and it's gonna attract the worm.
Walk without rhythm, it won't attract the worm. Walk without rhythm, and it won't attract the worm. Walk without rhythm, and it won't attract the worm. If you walk without rhythm, you never learn.
Aquaman leads Merc and the Drift, which are like Atlantean special forces, out to the southern rim of the city where they find the Shaggy Man marching straight towards the walls. Aquaman stops before the behemoth and orders it to halt, but it punches him, sending Arthur through the city walls. Neptune's balls! The Drift unloads on the beast while Arthur floats in the rubble of the wall that broke his landing. And meanwhile, the Drift are slowly making their way closer to the now downed monster, and Merc contacts Regent Tola. But then, the beast awakens and throws this one guy, like, to his death. The Drift opens fire, only to discover it's doing absolutely nothing. Then Aquaman penetrates the monster with his trident, but the Shaggy Man heals almost immediately. Arthur then goes for another stab, but his trident is caught in the seaweed. To the Widowhood. The mother says that marriage to the king is unwise, and that due to Mera's hotness, Arthur isn't thinking like a king. Mera's like, I'll just go then. And Siti tells her that the queen perseveres through all endeavors. But if she leaves, there's not going to be a wedding.
Report, Blackjack.
The weapon is on course, Manta, cutting directly through Atlantis.
Has he even slowed it down?
Not even slightly, sir. Back in Atlantis, Shaggy Man wrecks shit as Arthur voos by with a platoon of aquatic life that takes civilians to the public shelters. Then Tola shows up and Arthur's like, "What are you doing here?" "I am Drift, Lord. I am sworn to protect..." "No, I made you regent, Tola. For God's sake, you have responsibilities. And great power." "I know. That's why I summoned the fleet." Then the Atlantean fleet flies overhead and opens fire on the giant invader. Tola, Arthur, Merc, and someone else investigate the crater created by the fleet to discover the Shaggy Man still alive. Aquaman leads the Atlanteans back into battle when he figures out that it's following a straight line, and Kay plots the giant's path and discovers that Atlantis isn't its target. It's just in the way. Its real target is on the coast. It's heading for Amnesty Bay. Dun dun dun. So Shaggy Man breaks through the other side of Atlantis, and Arthur orders the fleet to hold off and instead to target the seabed around it. The fleet fires all batteries at the seabed, causing it to erupt and swallow the behemoth downwards. Aquaman and others go to investigate the newer crater created by the fleet to discover, hey, look, Shaggy Man's still alive. Who could have seen that coming? Then Shaggy Man leaps out of the ground it was buried in, and Aquaman gives chase. In Amnesty Bay, the giant lands on the corner of Green Sign and begins to go on a rampage. A few moments later, Aquaman crashes from the waves beneath the Amnesty Bay lighthouse. Shaggy Man tosses automobiles into the ocean as the police force attempt to do something. Suddenly, Aquaman clocks Shaggy Man in the giant Alan Moore face and sends it to the ground. Officer Watson, get everybody back. Then Shaggy Man whacks Arthur through at least 3 cars and 1 grocery store. He's helped up by his friend Jennifer, who happens to work in the store, and her manager runs over like, "Yo, you're always bringing your deep sea crazy into this town. Look at the state of this place." Ah! Shaggy Man crashes into the facade, and Arthur gets both Jennifer and her boss out of danger, and then he goes back and fights the monster through the streets again. Merc and the Atlantean fleet finally show up in the city.
This is futile. It's taking everything Atlantis can throw at it. Call your friends. Call the damn Justice League, my lord. What kind of heroes are they, Lord King? This town will be torn apart. They shall want to save it whether you're involved or not.
Then Merc calls out Arthur for having too much pride to call the Justice League to help him out, and Aquaman says that Merc is out of line, and Merc's like,
You're out of your mind, Lord King. You've got nothing to prove. Not to them, not to the world, not to me. You're Aquaman, by the gods.
"Yes, I am."
And you're a bloody idiot.
In front of Sam's Seafood, Arthur makes contact with the watchtower and orders it to initiate teleport lock. And then he makes contact with the Shaggy Man again. It grabs him by the head, and Aquaman punches his Justice League card into his fur as he activates the teleportation. The card then begins to glow bright blue, and the Shaggy Man vanishes into thin air.
Neptune's balls.
Merc runs through the crowd surrounding Aquaman, who looks like Rocky, as he lies unconscious outside of Sam's fish food. And he pleads for someone to help him.
Quiet now, the seas speak of Mera, born of the penal colony Isabel. The future tides whisper thus. A great queen she, proud and strong, a partner to her king, a mother to kings. Wait, it grows dim. What clouds the waters? No. It is Zebel blood. This stain is Zebel blood. The great king falls. The widow king, in anguish, assumes the throne, but her loss is too great. The fatal queen, from her lips comes the command, and the command becomes the storm, the deluge, to sweep the world away. The deluge is all I see.
Calm yourself, seer sister.
At the Oracle of the Widowhood, Mera demands to know what the vision means. She demands to know the myth of the deluge, which the terrorist group named themselves after, and why they think she is the fatal queen. Mother CT says that she's never seen a prophecy so potent, and then she takes a hit of the prophecy herself, and she's like, damn, this is some good shit. Mother CT then says that the Widowhood opposes Mera's match with Arthur because they're afraid.
Heed the tides, heed the howls of the house of light, for there the name of the enemy is hid.
And the mother's like, push Mera out of the room and get her away from the Oracle, and they leave the widowhood as they argue over her Zabel blood. And CT says that in all good conscience, they cannot sanction the marriage. Mera is stunned and asks what she's gonna tell Arthur. Then she torpedoes to the surface and makes her way towards the lighthouse. She walks up the cliffside and into the lighthouse, where she finds Salty, the aqua dog. She pets her pooch and walks inside and finds a pile of mail resting atop the table. And she opens the first letter that reads, "Your Highness, we met on the day of the Spindrift opening, blah blah blah. I need to speak to you. Great importance. Oceanside Hotel in Boston. Sincerely, Joanna Stubbs, Lit Royal Navy." At the Oceanside Hotel, Joanna eats some shrimp as J. Jonah Jameson's cousin watches her. "Haven't learned anything new. She likes shrimp, though. Wouldn't it be easier just to dispose of the limey bit?" "No." "Come on." "Oh, damn. That contact you were talking about. It's..." Mera introduces herself to Joanna as she takes a bite of seafood. She sits down across from her and is told that Joanna knows who is trying to frame Atlantis. Nemo, aka Nautical Enforcement of Macrocosmic Order. That's their real enemy. Mera thinks back to what the Oracle said about the name of the enemy in the House of Light, and then she tackles Joanna out of the way of a massive fire blast, and Jim Jonah Jameson, a member of Nemo, attacks the two. Mera kicks a tray card into him before leaping at him, but the assassin blasts her to the ground, and Joanna tries to hit him over the head, but is slammed in the face by his giant gauntlets. Where was he hiding those? How did he get them on? Then, Mera uses her awesome hydrokinetic powers to capture the man. So he pops out a little bomb from his gauntlet, causing Mera to dive for it. And luckily, she's able to create a water ball around the explosion, but unfortunately, the assassin escapes. Mera tells Joanna they wanted to silence her, and then she wonders what will happen when she tells Arthur about the situation. And Joanna's like, "How are you gonna tell Arthur about the situation after what happened in Amnesty Bay?" And Mera's like, What are you talking about?" Then Joanna explains the situation. Cut to Amnesty Bay. Massive crowds surround the hospital that Aquaman was admitted to. Mera charges her way through the crowd, followed by Joanna, and inside the hospital she finds Merc sleeping outside the door, and then she walks inside the hospital room and finds a member of the California Raisins. Mera races to her beloved, and Arthur tells her that he didn't want to disturb her during the widowhood meeting. And then he asks how it went, and Mera's like, "We'll discuss it later. It was fine." "Look at your face."
The Shaggy Man hits harder than Superman.
"I hit harder than Superman." Mera tells Arthur that she can hit pretty damn hard if someone is threatening the man she loves, and they carefully hug each other, and Mera tells him that she doesn't know if they can marry anymore, and Purple Skull tells her that the widowhood isn't gonna tell him who he can marry. Then he asks Mera to marry him, and she says that they'll talk about it later. Whoa, ouch. Then she tells him all about Nemo and Joanna Stubbs, and then they hear Murky yelling out in the hall. And through the door comes the Justice League. Oh my god, he's a monster. The League members greet the sea folk, and Mera blatantly says that Arthur is questioning his place in the League.
Clark.
"Arthur, you're Justice League. More than that, you're our friend. We came because we were worried about you."
I have a lead. The identity of a terror group that sank the Poncho train. Now I can close them down and end the hostilities between...
That's good news. I knew you'd keep your word. Black Manta and Jack watch the news feed of how much everybody loves Aquaman. And they're like, well, shit, looks like that backfired.
The board is right. Secrecy and deniability are Nemo's greatest weapons. When your friend turns on you, you despise them. When you give them a second chance and they do it again, there's no going back. Atlantis is about to declare war on the United States. It'll be a global disaster. And when the world falls to its knees in the chaos, Nemo will ascend and secure the unopposed control. Alert the agent network. Prep the pretender units for mobilization. This is a false flag operation.
Cut to Atlantis. Arthur, Mera, Tola, and Joanna stand around as Joanna explains to them her connections to Nemo. Her dad's a part of it and tried to recruit her. Oh, and they have agents worldwide, and she tells them that Nemo just wants to destabilize the world economy and global society and take over. Suddenly, Kay swims over and tells Arthur that he has a call from Agent Irving. So everybody gathers around the telescreen as Agents Irving tell Arthur that they've found data or something and they send it to Atlantis by uploading it to the foam. Get it? Instead of the cloud, because there's no clouds in the ocean. Arthur has Elder Roa match the data with anything Merc found at the vessel wreck and says that by tomorrow they'll have enough to prove their innocence.
And in other news... Oh my god. I'm sorry. We have to interrupt. We're getting reports of massive attacks in progress against several East Coast locations. Baltimore, New Orleans, Gotham, Annapolis... Oh, this is just awful. Atlantis has launched an unprovoked military assault on the United States. The number of casualties is currently unknown at the moment. We're waiting for official White House response. I repeat, at this time, Atlantis is attacking the U.S. mainland. Atlantis has gone to war with America. President officially declaring war on the rogue state of Atlantis.
77 nations have joined in condemnation of the brutal attack. A conflict that began with the unprovoked sinking of the warship USS Pontchartrain by Atlantis last month. Fierce fighting continues in Boston, where report that Chinese Navy buildup apparently anticipating Atlantean attacks on other nations.
One question. Yes or no? Is this us? No. It is not, Lord King.
In the Atlantean Control Center, Arthur is contacted by Captain Orcos, who is like 200 miles east of New York, and he warns them that the aggressor ships are moving south at flank speed, and that their sensors indicate it as the Megalodon, a Atlantean war-mercible destroyer that's been missing for 35 years. Spooky. Then Orcos warns that they've been pinged by an American warship and are hit by torpedoes. Which, I mean, besides the whole explosion thing, is that really an issue? I mean, they can breathe and swim underwater perfectly fine. Arthur tells his elders to defend their territory and to destroy any pretenders, and orders Kay to continue to try to reach the US. He and Tola then go to Roa, who continues her search through the FBI data files. So far, she's found 5 matching items, and Arthur tells her to keep on going and swims away. At the White House, resident Aqua hater, Gantry, meets with an admiral about Project Beakhead. Gantry follows the large man into a back room of the house and discovers 6 soldiers in skin-tight wetsuits. Then the admiral pops off a shot in the fucking White House to show off the bullet resistance of their suits, and nobody is worried about this. Rico hands Gantry the bullet and orders everybody to shark up, and then they begin to turn into like terrifying half-human, half-sharks. And that's only stage 1. Meet the Aquamarines. Cut to the Atlantic Ocean. A U.S. battleship is attacked by a giant mosasaur thing, and in Atlantis, Jurok, the keeper of the monsters, is pissed that Nemo stole his pets. And at Manta's Nemo base, he continues to watch the news with a big old smile on his face, and then he contacts Commander Stubbs and orders him to take his submarine, which is passing as a U.S. ship, as far into the Atlantean territory as he can, and to take out anything in his way. At the Atlantean War Room, Arthur and Tola make preparations when the Justice League appears! And don't bother worrying about how Batman is somehow sustaining this kind of underwater pressure.
You made me a promise, Arthur. I gave you a chance. Now the world is at war. I kept my promise. Both sides are being played by a third party. You're sticking to this theory? An anonymous third faction instigating the war?
Nemo, Nautical Enforcement of Macrocosmic Order.
Uh-oh, an acronym. They must be the bad guys.
What, it's tense in here.
Nemo would have to be immensely powerful.
They're an invisible world power.
Do you have evidence?
Because you don't trust my word?
I trust you completely, Arthur, but you could have been misled.
Yes, I have evidence. But I'm gonna need someone to present it to the White House. A negotiator.
Show me the evidence.
Meanwhile, Commander Stubbs drives his submarine into Atlantis and destroys an Atlantean ship before releasing these weird manta ray drones. And meanwhile, Batman says that this is some damn good evidence, and Aquaman tells him he needs to get at least one or more Nemo agents captured alive. He then gives Clark the data and swims off to protect his city. The fleet dogfights the weird drones that are bombarding Atlantis, and Merc says that there's no way that this weird manta drone shit is American, and Arthur tells Tola that they're about to have their hands on Nemo. And he pierces the submarine with his trident. Cut to the White House. Gantry continues to be a shithead and doesn't believe the evidence that the Justice League is presenting him, and God, I fucking hate this guy. He's probably the most realistic comic book villain. Aquaman kicks some serious Nemo ass inside the flooding sub and captures Commander Stubbs. At Nemo HQ, Black Manta presses a trigger that releases some sort of sonic bomb inside Stubbs' head, exploding it. Later at the White House, Gantry and the Admiral prepare to release the Aquamarines. And even later, 6 nautical miles northwest of Atlantis, the Aquamarines race through the water. And note, only one of the Aquamarines is a fucking shark. The others are fish, an octopus, and an orca. Why did Rico say shark up when she's the only motherfucker who's a shark? And why is he a stonefish? Then the Aquamarines silently infiltrate Atlantis and make their way towards their target. Arthur meets up with the elders and they discuss what course of action to take when most of them are shot down by the Aquamarines. Beastmaster fights the pigfish but is thrown out of the window like Mace Windu. Good thing he's underwater and won't fall to his death on the ground below. Aquaman is chased through the palace by the Aquamarines and he kicks most of their asses before he gets put into a chokehold by Great White, the shark woman. Orca goes in for a kill shot but is hit by a water fist, and Mera appears with roaring fists of current. Mera fights the other Aquamarines as Arthur fights the leader above the city when Jarek appears with a sea beast and tries to get it to eat Great White. But Arthur's like, no, bad bis, no more death, it's over. And then he clocks Great White right in her sharky face. Later, Arthur sits on his throne and tells Merc that they're not going to be killing the prisoners before he speaks before Atlantis.
People of Atlantis, you have heard the news. It's true. Today, the Americans tried to assassinate me in the palace. I know what you want. Vengeance. Action in response to this outrage. I feel it's... Alright. The surface-born have always been against us. This is the culmination of centuries of fear and rivalry. There is an old myth, the deluge, an end war that will sweep both Atlantis and the surface nations away. I would be failing as your king if I did not do my utmost to stop that myth from becoming reality. With his last words, the great Koa, elder of the law, told me he feared I was not strong enough to lead this nation. I intend to make one last effort to halt the surface war. If I fail, I will accept that Koa was right. I will accept that my dream of peace is foolish and unworkable. I will step down from the throne of Atlantis and be your king no longer.
Arthur walks back inside and tells Mera he loves her before swimming out of the city. Cut to the temporary Nemo base of operations.
6 more hours, Blackjack, and we switch focus to the Gulf of Mexico and to the South China Seas.
Boy, you just want to bring it all down, don't you?
We see this through to the end. Properly. No half measures. No hesitation.
Black Manta. I thought I should meet my enemy face to face.
Aquaman charges Black Manta and they fight throughout the control room as Blackjack shoots at him.
So we go round again, Arthur Curry. And this time I will.
I'm no longer interested in talking, Manta. So Arthur kicks some more Nemo ass until Black Manta jumps on his back and is kicked into a wall. Black Manta shoots at Aquaman with his wrist guns, but he blocks the bullets.
Then Black Manta lets loose his eye beams. And Aquaman barely dodges the bright red rays.
Aquaman throws his trident into Manta's left shoulder and then tackles him through the wall. You did this! You made this war!
I only did what you urged me to do. I expanded my horizons. I made more of myself.
Of course. It's never you. Blame me. Blame Atlantis. Blame everyone except yourself.
Hell has a place for both of us.
Click. Black Manta clicks the trigger and the entire ship detonates. Atlantean special forces are combing for his body and for any scrap from the ship that might be used to determine more intelligence. But Nemo has been disabled. The war between Atlantis and America is done because the true aggressor has left the field. It still exists, and I suggest that all the information we've assembled be added to every watch list imaginable. I suggest every country in the world join the hunt for Nemo now. But for now, Nemo's command system and its Fisher King are dead. So, as I said, I thought I should meet my enemy face to face and point out that if I wanted it to be, you would have been dead 5 minutes ago, Mr. President.
Mr.
I
Curry.
wasn't addressing you, Mr. Gantry, and I recommend that if you speak to me, you do so with respect and call me your majesty. You sent assassins after me in the throne of Atlantis, a justified act against a supposed rogue nation. What on earth makes you think Atlantis would not and should not do the same thing if it felt similarly threatened? I could kill you, but I won't. That's not who I am or what Atlantis is. I'd like you to remember that. Through the actions of a third party, we are at war. For the sake of peace, I will be the loser. Atlantis loses. Right now. We surrender. Not because we are weak, because Atlantis and America could annihilate each other. And continuation of this war will only end in global tragedy. If the US continues to fight, it will be the only aggressor. Is that how you want history to remember America? The ball's in your court. Superman and Aquaman walk out onto the lawn of the White House, and Superman gives Arthur a new Justice League ID card. Superman tells him that America and Atlantis will be working together to hunt Nemo and begin a program of restoration and reparation. Then Gantry walks out and calls Aquaman inside for a press conference about the new joint anti-terrorism program. And on a beach near the wreckage of the former Nemo headquarters, a body pulls itself out of the water. And Black Jack crawls up the beach. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode, even if it comes out a little late, and let me know what you thought of this story. Also, what are your thoughts on the new Aquaman movie? I'm pretty excited for it, especially since it'll hopefully be good and bring a change to DC's previously shitty track record of comic book movies. Yeah, I said it. I'll see you next time for a special holiday episode.